Hi guys, welcome to another episode. This is episode 4 of Introspect with me, Sharon Mwangi. Karibu sana. If you're new here, welcome. Feel at home. And kama kawaida, we're going to start with the first 2 questions of the day. That is, how have I been? And what am I grateful for? So number 1, I have been good. I have had a good week. I hope you've had an amazing week as well. And what am I grateful for? I am grateful for some opportunities that have come along. I have gotten a few opportunities to speak to people about mental health, and it's amazing. I'm loving it. However, it's kind of out of my comfort zone. Juni mambo ya public speaking, and me nakusimama mbele ya crowds kuongea. It's tricky, but at least I'm learning a lot. I am also learning a lot about myself, and my self-confidence is also really growing. So I am really loving it. So today we are going to talk about someone very interesting. So for the next few episodes, I'm planning to talk about some people I learned about back in school who made a very big impact in the psychiatric field or in the psychology field. And I think we can learn a lot from them. We can learn a lot from their lives, the way they live their lives, and also the concepts and the theories that they came up with. And today, we are going to talk about one of the most interesting people I have ever heard of who lived in history. As far as psychology is concerned, I think this guy was something else. He was something else. Anyway, so today we are going to talk about none other than the one, the only Sigmund Freud. I think Sigmund Freud was one of those people who are like kind of weird. You know, those people are kind of weird, but they're very smart. Yes. He was those kind of people. So Sigmund was born around the late 1800s, around your time, and he died in the 1900s, early 1900s. He was an Austrian psychologist. He was born, raised by Jewish parents. He had both of his parents, his father and his mom. And he came from a blended family. So, you know, the dramas of a blended family. Yeah, he got involved in some of those dramas, you know, the dramas of, you know, coming from a blended family. But let me tell you, if there's one thing Sigmund thrived in as much as he had like a complicated family setup, he was really smart. This guy was a genius. This guy was a genius. Like, he excelled in school. He was an overachiever. Actually, I think I describe him as an overachiever. Kuna article fulani nilisoma ilikuwa inasema Sigmund, like, he was competent in like over 4 languages. Yeah, he was competent in German, in Spanish, in Italian, in French, in English, and in Greek. Mpaka Greek. This person was an overachiever. He was really smart. Actually, when he graduated from high school, going out to start his university studies, he wanted to do law, but then he ended up in the medical field. So can you imagine having the options that you have? Is, do I do law and become the greatest lawyer, or do I get into the medical field? Like, very few people have such options. You know, very few of us get such options. So when now Sigmund joined the medical field, he really excelled. Of course, he went into the psychiatric field. He made a lot of contributions to psychology and what it is today. He was the founder of a very important school of thought, or rather a therapy technique called psychoanalysis. We won't go into it because I think that one will be like a whole lecture lesson and I'm not about to do that. Yeah, but he had a lot to say. He had a lot to say about every single thing concerning the mind. He had something to say about dreams. He had something to say about our development as humans. He talked about how our mind is like an iceberg. He talked about the conscious and the unconscious part of our minds. Like, Sigmund had a lot to say. He really had a lot to say. And unfortunately, yes, he was very smart, but he had one serious downfall, and that was he was a serious addict. A serious addict of tobacco. He started smoking when he was like 24. And it became so bad because he graduated from smoking cigarettes now to what are those? Zile nono kabisa zinaitangwa aje? What are cigarettes? Now the cigars. Yeah, those ones that look a bit more sophisticated, but just they're bigger. You know, those ones. Yeah. He used to smoke cigars a lot. There's actually another article I was reading about him that mentioned that he was really addicted to it, that he would smoke like 20 cigars in a day. In a day. 20. And moja venye ni kubwa, na nono, guy, 20 of them. It was so sad and so unfortunate because of how much he smoked. He got cancer. So he got cancer, and that became the end of him. However, there are some people in his life who are really trying to help him get out of the addiction, but hakuwa anawasikiza. And he used to come up with some of the craziest explanations as to why he will not stop and he will not quit smoking. The same article I was reading about Sigmund mentioned that he had a colleague who like was really trying to help him get out of, you know, like the addiction and stuff, and to try to talk him out of smoking and to, like, you know, stop smoking and stuff. But he gave such a lame excuse. He said at him smoking tobacco, his addiction to smoking is compensation for masturbation. Oh my God. Yeah, I feel like, no, like he was a genius. He was smart, but sometimes when I sit down and like really think about what some of the things he was saying, I'm like, no, he didn't make sense. And actually, if you go to read about some of the research that he did and some of the concepts that he came up with, you will realize just how messed up this guy was to some extent. Because there is two concepts that he came up with that up till date, I still sit down and wonder, what was wrong with this man? He came up with something called Electra complex and Oedipus complex. Now, Electra complex, he said, is when a girl feels attraction to the father. Like, it's a stage of development. There's a stage of development that we get to in life where now us as girls, like, we get attracted to our fathers. And then the Oedipus complex is the opposite, where the boys are attracted to their mothers. That's so nasty. He was so nasty. Man, I understand that there's a bond that fathers, daughters have, mothers, sons have. Like, there's that whole debate of that mother-son bond and that father-daughter bond. But to say it is a sexual attraction, I mean, we are pushing the moral boundaries, okay? We are pushing it too far. So other than him being kind of a weird guy, he had some very, very good things to say about us as humans and about how we think. And one of the things that I really enjoyed learning about him, a concept that he came up with, is something we call defense mechanisms. So now basically what defense mechanisms are, it's like a mechanism our minds have to protect us from negative emotions, negative thoughts, or anxious thoughts and anxious feelings. In the previous video, which if you have not watched, please go and watch that video on negative emotions. So in the previous video, we talked about some negative emotions like anger, sadness, you know, embarrassment, shame, jealousy, resentment, you know, all those negative emotions that you can think of. And there's a mechanism our minds have to protect us from feeling those emotions. And like, from the word defense, it means it's a way of our minds trying to defend us from those negative emotions. Are all of them healthy? No. I think majority of them are very unhealthy. It's just like it's the immediate response, but it's not the best way to cope with negative emotions over a long period of time. There are some which I feel like could be positive, but others, So we're gonna look at some of them. There are very many. We have so many defense mechanisms, but we're going to look at some of them, a few of them which I think are kind of the most common. So the first one is denial. So a lot of times you find that when you're faced with a very difficult situation, or you're told a very difficult or hard truth or hard fact, and you start to feel that difficult emotion, the first thing is probably to deny that, like to say like, no, this is not true, this is a lie. Like if someone told you that person who you believe is faithful, that you trust them with your everything, someone comes and tells you like, oh yeah, niliona nani akiwa in a very tight situation, akiwa in a very tricky situation, ni kama anakucheza. A lot of us, the first response would be like, no, you don't know him like I know him.
There's no way he would ever do something like that to me. Ain't no way she would ever say something like that about me. Ain't no way.
Because your mind is trying to like protect you from that feeling of pain and disappointment from probably this person that you really trust or you regarded highly. The second one is what we call displacement. Now, displacement is when you see the frustration and the pain that you probably feel about a particular situation, you take it out on the wrong person. That's what's displacement. Let me give an example. Umeenda job, boss wako ameamua leo wewe ndio, yes, you're his punching bag today. So that day you have a very stressful day at work. Your boss amekukalia, amekufika kwa call, like you're tired, you've had it, you're fed up. So when you go home, your family is there waiting for you. Your kids, your spouse, or your parents are there. Your siblings are there waiting for you. And you yell at them, you shout at them, you're angry at them. You start to, have like tantrums or something like that. Like ni kama unawatolea iyo hasira, niko unawatolea iyo stress. It's not that your family members or these people are the ones who have disappointed you or they've frustrated you. It's just that they're the outlet. That frustration that you wish you could be able to release on your boss, sasa unaitolea kwa watu wengine. And a lot of time displacement happens when the person who has offended you is someone who unafeel ukimconfront kutakuwa na serious repercussions, kutakuwa na like serious consequences. Like for example, you yelling back at your boss might probably end up getting you fired, you get? So, but when you probably go and yell at your kids, there's not much that they can do really. They'll just cry and feel sad. So at the back of your mind has already calculated that. It has already without even you knowing. At the very back of your mind, your mind has already calculated that for you. And it's like, okay, I can't yell at my boss. So when you go home, that frustration that you feel, because you've already bottled it up and it's inakufinilia, the people that you release it to is people who, even if you release that frustration, it won't have very serious consequences. Number 3, we have projection. Now, projection, I think, is something that a lot of us have said or we've heard about it. And what projection is, it's basically the pain, frustration, or insecurity, or whatever anxiety you feel as a person, you mirror it at others. It's like other people become a mirror of whatever you're feeling and whatever negative emotion and whatever negative thing you're going through at the moment. For example, if wewe na beshte yako umezoea kusengenya watu, like umezoea kusengenya this particular person, like you gossip this particular person. So anytime you see this person mwenye mnasengenyanga, anytime you see this person who usually gossip, talking with someone else and probably giggling and doing that, you automatically assume that they are gossiping as well. Not because that's true. They're probably not even hata wako hapo, labda wanapiga tu stories out, but for you, because that is already a negative thing that you're doing, you mirror it to the other person and you think that they are doing the same to you. Projection can also look like, you see those people who always have something negative to comment about people's bodies. Those people who always have to body shame someone, or they make very weird comments like
usikii umeonona ama usikii umekonda, yani usikii ni kama unahitaji ku-workout kidogo.
Yeah, it's those, a lot of those people are projecting their own insecurities on people. Probably for them, when they look at themselves in the mirror every morning or every day when they're getting ready, they're like, hey, I can imenona. Oh my gosh, I need to lose weight, or there's something absolutely wrong with my body. So what they do is at the same mirror, like the same way they see themselves, they begin to mirror it to other people. Number 4 is regression, something we call regression. So regression comes from the word regress. To regress is like to go behind or to reverse or something like that. So basically what regression is when you're faced with a difficult situation, you're facing a difficult negative emotion, you don't know how to handle it, your mind kind of goes back to an earlier stage of development and you begin to act like how you would act in a previous stage of development. And this looks like crying hysterically, throwing tantrums, silent treatment. You know, when you think of a child, how they would react when they do not get what they want, when they do not get their way, when umeenda na supermarket ameitisha kitu umemwambia hapana, you know, that kind of tantrum that the kids throw, amejilalisha chini, they are kicking their legs, they're just making a whole dramatic scene. So there are sometimes as adults, when you're faced with a difficult situation, or especially a confrontational situation, you find yourself reverting back to how you would react as a child, which is throwing tantrums, you know? So like when you were a kid and you'd not get what you wanted in the supermarket, you'd cry, or you'd give your parents a silent treatment, or you'd do the pouting and all of that, you know? So right now, when your significant other for your birthday has gotten you a simple card, some beautiful flowers, and a box of chocolate, but you were expecting a trip to the Maldives, and he tells that he can't afford that, what do? You give him the silent treatment. What do? You throw tantrums. What do? You cry hysterically. It's like it's the end of the world. Yes, that's a defense mechanism. It's called regression. And so the last one, which I think is the most positive one out of all of this, is what is called sublimation. Sublimation, probably you've had it in science, but in this specific concept, it means you see that kind of frustration, that negative feeling and that negative energy that you feel, you let it out and release it in more positive and socially acceptable methods. For example, probably there are people who get really angry, and when they get angry, they have a tendency to be very aggressive. So this person feels angry, they can't punch or beat up the person that has made them angry. So what do? They go to the gym, they get a punching bag, and that's where they let it out, okay? Yeah, or people who probably go through a heartbreak. So what do? They go and write a nice song about it or a poem. Sublimation is when you take that negative emotion or that negative feeling or whatever it is that you're going through that is difficult to you, and that negative energy you feel, instead of releasing it in a way that is not socially acceptable, for example, fighting, beating up people, stealing, vandalizing property, you like release it in more healthier methods that are acceptable in society, like going for a run, jogging, the gym, writing a song, writing a poem, journaling, you know, yeah, all of that. Out of all these defense mechanisms, I think sublimation is the one that we should strive our very best to get to. And you know, unfortunately, these defense mechanisms, a lot of times you're not even aware, because it's like a mechanism that your body it's like almost like a reflex. You know, like you're not usually very aware until you like sit down in it and you're like, oh, by the way, what I'm doing is not right. The introspection question for the day is, which of these defense mechanisms are you guilty of? It will be best if we all work towards, of course, healthier ways of coping with these negative emotions, negative situations, difficult, anxious situations that happen in our lives. Yeah. So that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you've learned something new. If you've not subscribed, please subscribe. Bye.